MPs are to receive an inflation-busting 3.1% pay rise next month to take their annual salary for backbenchers to nearly £82,000. Parliamentary independent pay allowances, they awarded them a £2,500 pay hike based on salary rises across the public sector. The rise compared with the 1.8% rise in the Consumer Price Index. Now, this headline says outrage as MP's pay soars to £82,000. Not wishing to be controversial, I've got outrage. I don't think it's enough. I don't think MPs are paid enough. Why? Because the very brightest brains in the country are getting paid one heck of a lot more money than that. And we are expecting these people to govern us, to come up with good legislation, to have integrity, to have leadership skills. And yet we pay them this amount of money. Now, you may think it's a lot of money. I don't. I wouldn't get out of bed for that. Now, you might think that I'm being a bit snobby or snotty. We have to have a proper conversation in this country about what pay means, what we should pay people. We have chief executives of local councils on hundreds of thousands of pounds. Are you telling me that the chief executive of a local council, who is accountable, by the way, to nobody, is worth 2 or 3 times more than a member of parliament? We've got it all wrong. So, do I want to see MPs' pay rise in accordance with this? No, it shouldn't be 1.8. If Consumer Prices Index is 1.8%, it should be going up by 1.8%. That's not the point. The point is that we are totally wrong in what we are paying people within the public sector. And I want to rip it all up. And I want to get rid of all the pay grades across everything. And then I want to sort it out so that people are paid properly. And also, why should one chief executive of one local council be paid any more or any less than any other? Unless, of course, what you do is you have a base salary, which is agreed, and then they can have a bonus arrangement based upon that individual's performance. When are we going to understand in this country that we have to pay people properly? For example, are you telling me that an MP is 4 or 5 times less important than the DG of the BBC? He's on £450,000. That's paid for by you. This is the outrage that we have got our pay system within the public sector totally and completely wrong. We're paying the wrong people too much money. We are paying the right people not enough money. We need to redesign the whole system. That's what I'm saying. So yes, there's outrage as MPs pay. It's not about soars. It's at £82,000 when, to be honest, they should be paid at least the same amount of money as a chief executive of a local authority. Surely that should be the same band. And then, okay, look, if you don't like your MP, get rid. But also, when are we going to make it age appropriate? So we've got 1 or 2 MPs in there who are in their early or mid-20s. They shouldn't be on the same amount of money who's somebody who's been doing it a heck of a long time. When are we going to realise that we need to pay people in the public sector properly based on a combination of skill, experience, and also the nature of the job? Do you agree with me that we have got MPs' pay wrong? Should we pay MPs more? And do you agree that we should rip up the rule book? For example, we got superheads or something of, that managed to take on 3 or 4. How can you be head, master, mistress, whatever, of more than one school? What the heck is the point in that layer of all? Get rid of all these useless people who do useless jobs and get paid huge amounts of money to do them. And this Quango and that Quango, where was the bonfire of Quangos? When did it never happened? And so, for example, here we are, we're facing the budget very shortly. We have one of the highest tax burdens in the Western world. And we try and pretend, oh, yes, well, our tax rates are the same. No, they're not the same, because we've got so many blooming layers of tax here, there and everywhere that we end up paying for it. And the thing is that we get outraged about MPs being paid £82,000, but we don't get outraged about what we should get outraged about, which is the waste. There are people up and down, faceless, useless individuals within the civil service who do God only knows what nothing, getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds, by the way, on the most extraordinary packages that allow them to retire when they're about 10 years old. Seriously, we're paying for this. You can go into a government job, do 30 years, and retire in your late 40s, early 50s on a full pension. Last year, the oldest person in the world was found out to be this individual who is 111 years old. He used to be a university lecturer. He retired in 1973. I was 3 years old. Now, I'm delighted that he's still healthy and still living. But if he was a university lecturer, that means that you and I, the taxpayer, have probably been paying him a full pension since 1973. You're only supposed to get a pension for 5 or 10 years after you've, hung up your last clock. We've got it all wrong. Let's speak to Richard, who's in Birmingham. Richard, good morning.
Morning, James. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. So,
Good.
Tell me, MPs, I've suggested I don't think they're paid enough.
Well, I think when you're comparing them like for CEOs of blue chip companies, etc., you're possibly right. But where I would come from is
it's not even close. Listen, you're lower to middle management.
No,
you could be 3 years into a job at an investment bank and be paid more than that.
The point I'm trying to make, James, is that I was lucky enough to be working at the Standard when the expenses scandal broke. And if you look at the MP's expenses allowance, it's probably one of the most generous you'll ever come across. They're subsidised second mortgages. They get £20,000 to £25,000 to basically refurbish that house. They can take constituency.
But a lot of that has gone.
Well, a lot of that has gone, but it's still, if you notice, they hide the reforms and they often vote against them. The thing I'm saying that if they get voted out, they get a year's relocation salary. All the benefits, allegedly, Mr. Keith Vaz, if you like silt cushions, they keep all those benefits. Flat screen TVs.
Yeah, look, flat screen TV you can buy for nothing. Listen, this is a tabloid nonsense. If you have a look at any job where somebody is at a senior level of an organisation, there will be all sorts of privileges. For example, you go and work for the British Broadcasting Corporation and become a suit. Funnily enough, you'll have a nice corporate card that will allow you to go and take people to lunches and bits and pieces. The amount of entertainment that goes on within organisations, you from the second you arrive at your organisation to the second you leave to go and do, with your work, you are going to events, you're going to conferences, you're staying in hotels, you're travelling, you're doing stuff. There are perks everywhere. And if you are an MP, you have to have a second home. You have to be able to afford to do that. So for some who are very wealthy, Richard, that's fine. But for those who are not...
But the point I'm making, these subsidised mortgages, etc., the stuff they buy for these houses, the relocation year's salary afterwards, they keep those. If they gave them back and so
yeah, because they've got absolutely no job security whatsoever, Richard. If they get voted out, they're gone.
I'm sorry, I never saw an arm twisted up the back to become an MP.
That's not the point. The point is, how can you justify paying a chief executive of a local authority who is also paid for by you and me, the taxpayer, £250,000, £300,000 a year? They have accountability to no one, and they have many of the benefits that you talk about MPs. I'm just saying that the level is wrong.
I would agree with that, but if you take CEOs of blue chip companies, and I listen every week, and I think you do a brilliant job on your sackings and bringing useless CEOs to task. I think you do a fantastic job, but there are many, many very good CEOs, and all I'm saying...
And they're paid millions of pounds, Richard.
I agree with the comparison. I agree with you totally. The point I'm making is, I would, and this is pretty well out there, I really believe in my heart that 82,000 could, I reckon, about 70 grand could be put into the bank with the expenses, allowances, the travel. I mean, I can't employ my wife to be my secretary, but, and that's on an expense allowance. The point I'm making, James, is that they don't get £82,000 and have to cover everything.
OK, good point, well made. Richard in Birmingham, thank you. Let's go to Dean, who's in Oxford. Dean, good morning. £82,000 for an MP. I don't think it's enough.
I disagree with them getting more money. But then they should stop all the subsidised bars within the House of Commons and the restaurants.
Why? They're brilliant.
Because when I work, I have to go out and buy my own meal in a restaurant.
Oh, diddums.
I don't get subsidised for it.
Diddums, you're not an MP.
No, but it doesn't matter whether you're an MP or not.
To be fair, you've probably got a spoon.
But
You've probably, Dean. You've probably got a spoon. Dean, you've probably got a spoons near you, which is pretty much as good as subsidised. They haven't got spoons in the House of Westminster if they want to go to the pub outside. Have you seen how much it costs to get a pint of lager outside the House of Commons?
But the thing is, there's loads of places in London they could eat.
Yes.
So why don't they go and eat there?
Well, because they're MPs. They're busy.
Anyway. So why did we have to subsidise all the bars and restaurants?
Well, it's hardly subsidised. It's just that they charge slightly less tax.
Well, it's still subsidised, isn't it?
It's a perk of the job, Dean.
You know, the other thing I've got with it as well.
Yes.
Give them £120,000 a year, take away their expense account and all their perks, then they might be worth it.
I think if you get that, you get even lower quality.